So when the news about BioWare already working on Dragon Age 4 broke out, it felt exciting and I immediately thought of the hundreds of hours of fun I already had spent when playing the previous Dragon Age Inquisition. Despite its flaws and shortcomings, Inquisition did a great job at pulling you in, and it was probably the last time BioWare managed to put together a good game without too many major screw-ups. Don't get me wrong, that game went through the same development hell as the later Mass Effect Andromeda and the present time Anthem did, but at least the end product didn't feel too much like a half-finished, rushed out the window demo. By all means, I was and still am looking forward to Dragon Age 4, but not without being overly cautious after everything that has happened in the past few months and even years over at BioWare. As such, that initial excitement I had didn't last for too long, as a much bigger concern naturally followed, and that is of course the question of what about Anthem? What happens with Anthem now when the company has already shifted a part of its workforce towards their next project, which from the looks of it and the small details we have at hand seems to be built entirely on Anthem's skeleton. Dragon Age 4 has been said to both be built using the game engine and assets that were already created for Anthem, as well as following the same games as a live service model. Saying that I'm overly cautious about it would be pretty much an understatement at this point. And this while we have to keep in mind the fact that Anthem is a game that, by all metrics, didn't impress as much as it was expected to, and it was one of the more poorly received games of this year. So you can imagine that this type of news can't be all good news for all of those who want to see their game succeeding, or at the very least are looking forward to getting more value out of the $60, $80 or $100 they have spent on it. Anyways, to do a recap, last week Mark Dara, the executive producer over at BioWare, made a not so subtle comment about already working on Dragon Age 4, which wasn't all big news. We already knew that the company would resume work on that game after previously putting it on ice to focus their work on making Anthem. But the news of this soon broke out and raised serious concerns about not just BioWare's commitment to fixing Anthem, but also their ability to do so. With the main studio in Edmonton already moving to the next big thing, and the one in Austin being left to pick things off with the live service, it means about half of their focus has been shifted to something else other than Anthem. Anyway, various leads over at the company soon came in with their own statements on the matter, mentioning how they're still focusing 100% on making Anthem better and how there's a huge team behind the game regardless. The head of live service over in Austin came in soon after saying, "We remain 100% committed to Anthem and look forward to showing players the new content we are working on. We want to make sure we aren't overpromising, so our updates on what's coming in the game will be focused when we have things near completion. Along with Ben Irving and I, we've got a big team between Austin and Edmonton, focused and motivated for improving the game." Normally the news of a company shifting work towards something new isn't a sign of them abandoning their current projects. That's pretty much an industry standard, and most AAA companies in fact start their work on their newest games or on their next big games as soon as the previous ones have been released. On one hand, that is perfectly understandable even for BioWare. They're in the business to make money obviously, and they wouldn't even survive, neither would they even be able to put out this type of games if it weren't for this very reason. On the other hand, as much as I love the Dragon Age series, I can't help but feel BioWare isn't doing everything in its powers to fix Anthem, and for that reason I find their commitment to do so not as strong as they're advertising it to be. Given Anthem's current state, with the bleeding player base and now the even bigger update delays, I can see why people were quick to point out towards the possibility of BioWare already abandoning Anthem. I mean, even they admitted that they couldn't keep up with their own content roadmap, though they never specified the real reasons behind that. If Anthem's release and current state wasn't so dire, I don't think anyone would even pay any attention to this kind of news, but because BioWare is in a bad position right now and the game isn't, well, in its best state, there's more than a few concerns that this type of news would raise. Now this doesn't mean it's all bad news of course. From everything we've seen so far, with the team over in Austin being for the most part fully committed, always bringing updates when they have something to say, it doesn't give me the impression of a game that is about to get abandoned. By all accounts, it looks like, at least for now, some of the workforce even in Edmonton is still very much actively working on fixing Anthem, if the previous statements are to be believed. It's mostly the producers who have shifted their work or focus on Dragon Age 4, and even in that case only some of them did. It also looks like BioWare does have plans to make updates more frequent. Jesse Anderson commented on this topic later saying, "We will get to the point where there'll be more frequent frequent community updates either through more live streams, forum posts, or podcasts. Right now though, I can't just say, hey, I'm gonna share all of this info without first aligning with a larger group. Even Jonathan Warner, who's been absent for the past few months for personal reasons, pitched in saying there's an amazing and large team behind Anthem and our support for the game is unwavering. For the most part, I'm seeing the fan response to these statements as being quite positive, and no matter if these are to be believed or not, on the short term they kinda did their job. Besides, it's not like the heads over at BIOWARE will soon come out on Twitter announcing they're leaving Anthem dead in the water not even 3 months after its release. It's mostly PR talk, I think most people understand that, and I'm the type of person who prefers patiently waiting in the backside and letting results speak for themselves. That is what I did with No Man's Sky when it went through its own controversies, and something similar to what Anthem has right now, and if BIOWARE can pull off even half of what Hello Games did, they might just turn things around for the better. The fact of the matter is, there's always a vocal minority that is much better at bringing its point across, be it in a good or a negative way, but it doesn't always do a great job at reflecting what the rest of the player base is thinking. As much as people have declared Anthem dead, I still see people committed to it, I'm still personally engaged and playing it at the moment, and this whole situation with people wanting more updates fast is a bit ironic if you think about it. The irony here is that the game and the company faced two controversies from the same group of people that kinda contradict each other if you spend even 1 minute thinking about it. On one hand, people were up in arms about BIOWARE overworking their staff and crunching hours during development. On the other hand, the same people are up in arms about BIOWARE not being able to deliver big and content-filled updates at a fast enough rate. But the problem is the type of content Anthem requires right now can't be delivered in a timely manner, at least not at the pace the vocal minority wants, without crunching those numbers to begin with. It all boils down to two separate situations which can't coexist and will otherwise hit each other in the head. There's already positions being opened at the studio naming Anthem specifically, but until then, the huge amount of work required to update this kind of game would likely require overworking the staff to begin with. BIOWARE unfortunately simply started on such a bad footing with Anthem that there is very little space left for reason, and that is why we're seeing these reactionary responses from the angry mobs. Anyway, on a final note, I'm sure there's a lesson to be learned here, but most people probably won't. You can check online if you don't believe me, but hype, or at the very least some form of excitement, is already building up for Dragon Age 4. The reality here is that we can voice our concerns all day on the internet, and the company might come in and put in some work into their own games, but your average consumer won't care as long as they get enough entertainment out of the money they have spent on the game. I, for example, have close to 400 hours in Anthem, and many would consider I already extracted all of the fun I could get for the $80 I have spent on the game, and I would honestly tend to agree with them. That is why when making these videos, I'm trying to present the facts as they are and let people judge for themselves depending on their experience rather than, going on a biased opinion. Speaking of opinions, I believe EA's financial reports are due any day now, and we might even get to see exactly how well Anthem fared. I don't like ruining anyone's fun, but no matter how much BIOWARE is committed to their own game, their EA overlords might not be of the same opinion. At this point, I'm surprised it's gone for so long without even a single word coming out from Electronic Arts on the matter, which makes me assume Anthem performed well enough in terms of revenue to warrant them letting this game live. The 100 million figure we had last month might have even actually been lower than the real amount Anthem brought to EA and BIOWARE, according to some rumors. So yeah, take it as you will. It's either that or EA is more lenient nowadays with their studios, given the fact that their past few years haven't been their best and have long fallen from the old days of milking every single cent out of their customers. But anyway, one final thing I wanted to say is vacation is over, I'm back home, and content is going to start flowing on schedule starting today. Now tell me in the comment section below, what do you think of the news about Dragon Age 4? Would you even buy it on launch day? Would you even trust a company like BIOWARE anymore, considering everything that has happened in the past few months and years? Comment down below, and in the meantime also don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys later.